Good morning and thank you for participating in today's webinar. My name is Bonnie Kahakui and I will be conducting this webinar. With me this morning is the HANDS team, Stacy Kaleimoku, Sean Ritchie, and Sharon Ota. And all the way from Arizona, we have our partner liaison from Hawaii Information Consortium, Megan Nichols. Before we begin, there's a couple of housekeeping notes that we want to mention. If you are attending as a group, don't forget to use the group attendance form and email it to this office, state.procurement.office@hawaii.gov. If you haven't already downloaded a copy of the user guide, it is available down in the lower left-hand corner of this presentation or on the registration page. This webinar is scheduled for 90 minutes. However, it may be longer or shorter depending on the number of questions. Please use the question and answer pane over to your left-hand side, and we will try to get to as many as we can. We will stop after every major topic and ask for questions and answers. This webinar is being recorded, and if all goes well, we will make this available to you if you need to review. Basically, the user guide is the most helpful. We are revealing for the first time outside of the SBO office our new homepage featuring HANDS. The tiles have been rearranged and renamed. The awards, notices, which include CPO reviews, will all be in one place. Once HANDS is launched, you will notice a change in other areas of the SBO page, as we will need to revise any references to PANS. And now, after many long months of hard work, we present to you the Hawaii Awards and Notices Database System, also known as HANDS. PANS was made up of several different databases, and there was very little consistency to any one of them, and they are no longer being supported. Now, with one login and password, users will be able to post notices and awards, submit CPO requests, check HCE, or create HIPRO solicitation. When the integration with the other jurisdictions are complete, vendor will have the opportunity to look at all solicitations across the state in one single place. As the department and jurisdiction administrator, you will have control over your department users and access to the module in the HANDS. In just a moment, Megan will demonstrate the administrator features. Please keep in mind, this is a test site only. Over the next couple of weeks, more cosmetic and a few text changes will take place, but all major functionalities will remain the same. So Megan, it's all yours.
Fantastic. Okay, so this is the department admin dashboard. Once you actually log into HANDS, and if you are a department admin, this is what you would see. I'm going to begin with showing you the user management, because that's pretty much where you guys will all begin. So if you have a user within your department that you would like to give a role for HANDS, you're going to have them create an ehawaii.gov account first, and then they will have to give you the email address that they used when they created their ehawaii.gov account. Then you will log in, you'll go to user management, you'll enter the email address that they give you, and then you'll search for it. And then once it comes up, I'm just going to show you one that I've already added, but once it comes up, you would click add. So I'll demonstrate. So you would put the email address in, the email would come up like this, and instead of edit, it will say add. And then you'll click on that, and then you would fill out the various information about this particular user. So you're going to have to put what their position is. You would have to choose their user type, and I will go over what these types mean. So for a buyer, this user will be a buyer in HANDS and also in HIPRO. This user will be able to post notices and awards. This user will be able to submit CPO requests if they are in the executive department/agency. The user will be given buyer access to Hawaii Compliance Express. And if you choose the buyer role, then you will need to determine also the other aspects of, because they will have access to HiPro. There'll be a buyer in HiPro, so you'll have to determine what methods of procurement are allowed for this particular user in HiPro. So you would just select which ones they are able to create solicitations for in HiPro. You would also need to select whether or not this user would receive solicitation requests from requesters. And then lastly, you would need to choose if this user should be assigned a HiPro approval path. Approval paths can be either for awards or solicitations or both. You might want to assign this user an approval path for both when they're creating a solicitation or when they're creating an award, or none. So these are all the things that you would have to determine if you were going to create or assign the buyer role to one of your users. For a requester will be a buyer in Hands and a requester in HiPro. This user will be able to post notices and awards. This user will be able to submit CPO requests if they are in the executive department / agencies. This user will be given buyer access to Hawai'i Compliance Express. And if you are assigning this user, again, you will have to determine what methods of procurement they are allowed to submit requests for in HiPro. And then if there are any HiPro approval paths they should go through when they are submitting a request. The next one would be no role. And this literally means they have no role in Hands or HiPro. This would be for Hawai'i Compliance Express access only. So if you have a user that does not need to do anything in Hands or anything in HiPro, and you just want them to be able to search for vendors in Hawai'i Compliance Express, then you would assign them the no role. And there's no other criteria that you need to enter. You would just choose no role and then save. And lastly, the poster, this user will be able to post in Hands and will not have a role in HiPro. This user will be able to post notices and awards, and this user will be able to submit CPO requests if they are in the executive department / agencies. You will need to determine, if you choose poster as a role, you will need to determine whether or not this user should have access to Hawai'i Compliance Express. So there you would just enter yes or no, and then you would click save. So in this particular one, I'm going to leave it as buyer, and then I'm going to click save. To edit a user, you would basically do everything I just did. You would put in the email address, you would search for it, you would click edit, you would make any of the changes that are required. Maybe you're going to say yes to this, and then you'll click save. To deactivate a user, you would enter their email address in here. And for example, a reason that you may deactivate is if somebody left your department and so they no longer should have access to either Hands or HiPro. So then you would come in and you would click deactivate. And by default, we do not show the deactivated users. So you would have to click this to show deactivated users. And if you needed to reactivate that person because maybe you deactivated them by mistake, then you would come in and just click activate. If you have a user that is out of office and they forgot to click out of office before they left, then you as the department admin will have the ability to click out of office for them. So you would come in here, you would enter their email address, you would click search, and then you would click out of office. You would determine who is going to be their backup while they're out, and then you would click on that particular user, and then you will get a confirmation that now they are out of office and the other user will take over for their solicitations while they are away. To put the user back in office, you would simply enter their email address, search, and then click back in office. to download a list of users within your department, you would simply come in here and you would either choose whatever user you want to download the list for. So say I just want to download a list of all the buyers that I have within my department. Then I would choose the user role buyer. I would click search, and then I could export to Excel. If you want to download all of the users, then you would click all, and then you would search, and then you could export to Excel. Bonnie, before I move on to the HiPro approval paths, do we want to answer any questions about user management?
Yes, we have a couple of questions. One of the questions is, can we delete users in hands?
There is no delete, it's just deactivate. And that is essentially the same thing. If you're deactivating somebody, then they're no longer using hands. They would no longer have that role. If they logged in, they would see nothing.
A second question is, if a user or buyer moves departments, what is the process? And he has the ability, or the new department wants him to also be a buyer.
Okay, so if you have a person that's in one department, and they have all their solicitations and awards that they have, I would take note of the solicitations and awards, and then I would have the department admin come in and they would look up the user. So let's say it's going to be, let's use this one. So what you would need to do is you would need to have a system admin do this, though, because department admins cannot assign to another department, right? So you could only just assign a user role within your department. So if you have somebody that's switching from one department to the next, you would have to have a system admin do that. So that would be anybody at SPO. And they would come in and they would choose buyer, and then they would choose the department that that user is switching to, and then they would click save.
We have another question, Megan. Will all existing HiPro user profiles transfer over to hands?
Yes, that is correct. So because this user management is going to be the same, you could think of it as the same as HiPro. So when you're adding a user in hands, you're also adding them in HiPro, as long as it's one of the only user that is not in HiPro is the poster. The poster is literally just for hands. But if you were to assign a role in any of the other roles, then they will also be added to HiPro. So that means that user would use their eHawaiiGov login for either hands or HiPro. And so everybody who's in HiPro currently, right now, will automatically be in hands when we go live.
Megan, another question. The no role has a role in hands or HiPro?
It does not. So if you have no role, then you will not have a role in hands or HiPro. The only thing that you'll be able to do is you'd be able to access Hawaii Compliance Express and search for compliant vendors. And we are adding, just to let you guys know, when Bonnie had discussed that we are adding some text changes, for here we are going to put no role and then in parentheses HCE access only. So then it is more clear that that is what that is for.
Okay, let me just check for other questions real quickly. I think you answered this, but the question is, will all existing HiPro users need to be set up in hands again?
No. So if they already exist in HiPro right now, you will not need to do anything for those users. You will only have to do things for users who are not in HiPro currently. So if they're only, for instance, if they're only in PANS right now and they don't have access to HiPro, then you would need to come in here and add a user role for that user.
Okay, and another question. Will the current HCE and poster roles be transferred over to hands?
So for HCE right now, if you have HCE access and you are a HiPro user, then you will, all of that will remain the same. But if you're adding a new user in hands, and you're, let's say it's a poster, because the poster is only for, is it only hands user, then you would need to determine whether or not they need HCE access or not. Even if they already have it, you still would want to determine here, yes or no. That way you're not changing it. Because for instance, if they already have HCE access and you choose poster and then you put no here, then it will make it so they don't have HCE access.
Okay, so basically the question is, unless you already have HCE access through the buyer role in HiPro, you will need to assign your posters and your HCE, the people that you need HCE access, into hands.
That's correct. And that is, and just to be clear, that is only for posters or people that should have no role and they only should have HCE access. All the other users, so buyers, requesters, they will automatically be given HCE access. Is that it? Do you want me to move on?
There's a question about, no, just this one last question. One statement, HCE will transfer automatically only for HiPro buyers that are currently in the system. If they do not have HiPro access as a buyer, they will need to be given this no role or HCE access. Currently, we have thousands. I mean, we had literally thousands and thousands of HCE users, most of which are probably no longer with the state or haven't used the system in many, many years. So we don't know which ones are active or not. So this is a clean sweep for us. You will need to assign them HCE access through this hands user management. Okay, and one last question, and then we'll move on. Are we still limiting the number of hands users? Currently in PANS, users per division is limited to only 1 or 2. The answer to that is no. Now that you are going to be responsible, the departments are going to be responsible for their own user management. You can choose as many as you'd like. Just keep in mind, the more you allow, that's the more that you will have to supervise over. So let's move on to the next section, and then we can come back to questions as we need to.
So the next thing that I was going to go over is the HiPro approval paths. This is essentially a quick way for you, if you're used to HiPro where you go in and you have to update approval paths, or if you need to add approval paths or edit, all of this functions exactly the same as it does in HiPro, and it is updated instantly. So if you make a change in here where you add an approval path, it will add it to HiPro and to here. So you don't have to, switch between both dashboards. You can do it all right here. And it functions exactly the same. So when you add an approval path, you would, determine whether it was for solicitation or award. You would choose the name, all of the stuff that you would typically do for a HiPro approval path is all the information that you would put in. Or you could go in and edit one. And the listing that you're going to see here is just going to be the HiPro approval paths that are within your department. Bonnie, do you want me to move on to instructions? Because I remember you saying that since it's the same as HiPro, we weren't going to go through each step.
Yes, we can move on
to
the next session. If anybody has questions on HiPro approval paths, please send me a question on the question and answer pane, and then we can go through it if you need to.
Okay, so similarly, instructions work very much the same as the approval pass in that when you make a new instruction, it will update in HiPro and in Hands instantly. So you could add one here, and it will also show up in your HiPro instructions on your HiPro dashboard. You can also edit or remove instructions. So all of this, like I said, is exactly the same function that you have in HiPro. Okay. I'm going to go to announcements. So you would be able to send an announcement to any of the users within your department. So you would come into announcements. You would choose the users that this would be for. So if I wanted to send it to all of my buyers within my department, I would come in here and choose buyer. And this subject line will be the subject of the email that's going to be sent, email notification that would be sent to all of the buyers. So just keep that in mind when you're writing this. And the description is going to be exactly what's going to be in the email. So just make sure when you're writing it that you have your intro and the closing exactly how you would want it in the email. Oh, I will mention also that they will get a notification. You'll see up here, we'll go over notifications in a little bit, but each user, once you send out an announcement, they will get an email notification with this content, and then it will also show up in their notifications on their dashboard. Once you have put in all the content, you can either send it now, which will send it immediately, or you can schedule it for a future day. If you scheduled it for a future date, then you would be able to go in and edit that announcement. And so I'll show you, you would just go to your announcements from your dashboard, you would click on the announcement from the listing, and then it will show you the announcement here, and you would just click edit. And then you can make any changes. Say you noticed that there was a typo or you needed to add some extra information, then you could go in and make whatever changes that were needed and then update. And then it will still get sent out on that date and time that you had previously selected. If you need to cancel an announcement, then you would go to your announcements. You would select the announcement that you would want to cancel, and then you would come down here and you would click cancel. Are you sure you want to cancel? Yes. Then it says it was canceled. You can always go back to any of the announcements to the history, and then you would be able to see any changes that were made. So here you can say they changed the content from this to this, and this this user on this date and time switched the it to canceled. So any of the history is there if you ever want to know when it was sent, if it was canceled, who made an edit, all that stuff will be in there. For announcements that were already sent, you can go in and let's see, this one was sent. You would be able to see which users it was sent to. So typically it'll be a much longer list than this, but I only have one department admin, and this was sent to department admins. So you would be able to see the users. It would have like a list here. And I think it only goes to like 10, and then you would download the rest of the list. So say you have a lot more than 10, then it's not going to show 20. It will only show the first 10, and then you could download the full list here. So that's it for the announcements section. Bonnie, do you want to go over any questions?
Megan, we have a couple of questions going back to user management. So let's take those questions.
Okay.
If someone has HCE access currently because they are just checking whether a vendor is compliant, can they still have access to HCE without being inputted into hands? And let me answer that question. They will have access only for 90 days after the launch of hands. After that time, if they are not inputted into hands, they will no longer have access. So we are ensuring that everyone that will have access after 90 days are current users. For out of office, can there be a start and end date?
The answer is no. It's going to be based off, you have to manually go in and click yourself out of office and then manually go in and click yourself in office. So you can't click out of office and then say, put me back in office on such and such date. That's not currently how that works.
Okay, thank you. We're moving on to the next section for now, and this is going to be a brand new procedure. The procurement circular is being signed as we speak about CPO requests. Okay. So what will happen is all CPO requests, that's your SPO forms 1, 2, 3, 12, 7, 14, 15, all of them will now be submitted through the hand system. And Megan will show you how to submit a request.
Okay.
You're on, Megan.
So, any of the users that are in the executive departments / agencies will be able to submit a request. You would come to CPO requests in the main navigation, then you would click new request. You would choose the type of request from the listing. You would enter in the vendor and the amount, the start and end date. If you have a prior request number, you can enter that here. Here you can enter a point of contact. This point of contact will be notified whenever there is a change in the request. So throughout the process, once a determination is made, the POC will be notified. Any major changes that are going on throughout the process, the POC will be notified. And you can have multiple POCs. And one last thing is that the submitter, so that's me, the person who's actually submitting this request, does not get all of the notifications. The submitter is literally just submitting it. So if you, as the submitter, want to get all the notifications for this request, then you'll want to add yourself as a POC. And like I said, you can add as many POCs as you would like. You would just simply click add another contact, enter the next contact person's information, and you could keep going and keep going. But for this particular example, I'm just going to do one. You can enter comments in. And with CPO requests, you must add at least one file in order to actually submit this. So you will need to fill out the form, the PDF form that goes with this request, and then you would upload it here. You would also upload any supporting documentation as well. And then you would click submit. Once you have submitted the request, you could go to You would go buyer dashboard, then you would go to my records. Let's give this a second to update. So if you don't have any CPO requests, then you won't see this tab. Once you have actually created a CPO request and submitted one, then this tab will show up in my records, and then your record will show, your CPO request will show up here. Any of the ones that you have submitted. So you can see the status here of ones that were submitted, and this is just, an example of where you could go. Other than your own CPO requests, which you can see in my records, the only other CPO requests that you would be able to see are any of the ones that were posted to the public. So you'd be able to come to the CPO request page. You could search for any CPO request that was public, and then you have the option to export to Excel if you want a listing of, let's say, ones within your department. Then you could type in your department, you would export to Excel, and then you would have like a listing of the CPO requests within that department. Let me make sure that I'm not forgetting anything. And I believe that was everything that I had for CPO requests. Bonnie, did we have any questions on this process?
Yes, the question is, can multiple vendors be inputted?
The answer is yes, but when you put it in, then you'll just put, for instance, vendor 1, comma, vendor 2, comma, vendor 3, comma. It's all one text box, but you can enter multiple vendors in that text box.
Okay, another question is, if you can clarify, what role is assigned to someone that is only submitting CPO requests?
If they're only submitting CPO requests and they don't need to have any kind of functionality in Hypro, then I would assign them the poster role.
Okay, let's see.
As long as they're in the executive department / agency.
Okay, another question a little bit outside of this particular area, but does department admins have the ability to set or reset passwords, user passwords?
No. So if you have any issues with your passwords, then you'll need to contact the Hawaii Information Consortium customer service. So right here on the help page, if you need technical assistance, this is where you can find that information. So if any of your users need to reset their password, they actually, let me log out for a second. All users can reset their password themselves, but if they have an issue, let's say it's asking for their secret password and they don't know their secret password or something like that, then they would contact customer service. But right here on your login page, it says retrieve password, and you would just go through the steps of retrieving your password. We also have instructions here on how to do that. So if any of your users within your department say, I can't log in, my password's not working, tell them to go here and look at these instructions, and then if they're still having trouble and can't get through it, then have them call the customer service.
Okay, another question. This is more for me. I assume that the SPO request must be signed by the department head before it is uploaded. Yes, the forms themselves, the SPO forms 1, 2, 3, 7, 16, 18, all of them will still need to be completed and signed by the appropriate person before it's uploaded. And if it's going to be electronically or digitally signed using e-sign, we also will need the audit form. Okay, I think that was all the questions we had on CPO requests. So we can move on to the next section.
Okay, great. So the next section is the Hawaii Compliance Express. So from your user dashboard, you would go to Compliance. And as long as you're logged in and you have HCE access, which you will as a department admin, but so will your users, buyers, requesters. If they have HCE access, then this is what they would see on the compliance page. And if you need to search for vendors to get their compliance certificate or just any of your normal activity that you would do in HCE, then you would come here and then you could click, and it was just telling you that you're leaving hands and you're going to HCE. And then you would go about your searching the way you normally do in HCE. So these are just quick links from your hands dashboard. That would, like, so here is all of the contact information for HCE. So this is linked to the contact information page. And then we also have the facts that are on the SPO website that are specific to HCE. So I'm going to do the search now. So if you're a user and you're logged in, you will see a search that is like this, where you would be able to enter in your department, and you could narrow it down by either solicitation, and it will show you, well, so let's see. You could break it down by any kind of keyword that is within the solicitation. So if you're looking for a specific one, you could enter in a keyword that you know is on there. You could also enter in a solicitation number, and then it will come up. And like I said, you can narrow it down by solicitation or award. And the last thing that you can also do in this search is search for vendor. And then these vendors are the vendors that are registered as a vendor in HiPro. So if you click on a vendor name, it will take you to HiPro, and you would be able to see their vendor information from HiPro. And some other really awesome things that you can do with this search is, say you want to know what awards a certain vendor has won, then you could put in the vendor name, and it will come up. You could choose award, and it would come up here, any of the awards that they have won. And I know later on down my list of agenda, I have to go over how you would export like certain records for your department, but since we're already in the search, I'm going to go over that now, which means if you want to come in and you want to have a listing of all of the notices for your department, then you would put in your department, and then you would click solicitation, and then you would export to Excel. And same thing for awards. So if you wanted to export all the awards that you have, then you would click award, and then you would put in your department, you would click award, and then you would export to Excel. And I already showed you as well that you can do that via department for CPO requests as well. So that's for solicitations, awards, and CPO requests. You can download all of the ones that are within your department. One more thing that I was going to mention is that as a department admin, if you come to the search, you would also have access to any solicitation notices or award notices that are in draft mode from any user within your department. So if you have a buyer that has saved a notice as a draft and has not posted it yet, then you would still be able to come in here and you would view it. And those ones, I don't have one to show you as an example, but they are marked as draft. Like it'll have a little draft icon.
Megan, we need to go back for a moment. The question is, how long will the current HCE website address be available after HANDS is implemented? Basically, the URL address for HCE will remain the same. Your access to it will differ unless you have a HANDS role. Is that correct?
Right. So we're not redirecting the URL at all. We're just making it easier for the users that are in HANDS to access HCE. So if you have a user that just wants to strictly go to vendors.ehawaii.gov and access HCE that way, then they still can do that.
Will they still require a role in hands?
Yes. So in order to actually give them HCE access, you will have to come into hands and either give them, buyer, requester, or poster role, or if you don't want them to have any kind of role in high pro or hands, then you would just give them no role, and that would just give them HCE access and not access to anything else.
Okay, another question, going back to access. A non-executive department does not currently have a role in HYPRO. Do we need HYPRO access to post contract award information? So basically the answer is that you don't need HYPRO, you just need to have a poster role in hands.
Right.
Okay, the question on CPO requests, does it show status for CPO requests? So mark, let's see, they'll be marked by pending or approved, disapproved, no action required. On the public site, that's how they're listed. If it's submitted, that means it's still with SPO. If it's pending, that means we've posted it. If it requires posting. Once the determination has been made, then SPO will send you an email like we do now that the request has been approved, disapproved, no action required, and a copy of the request is attached to that email. Okay, another question, is there two different admins, one for hands and one for HYPRO?
No. So if you're a department admin in hands, then you are also a department admin in HYPRO.
Okay. That was the last of those questions for this section.
Okay.
We want to go ahead and move on?
Sure. So the next thing I was going to show was the change owner functionality. So give me 1 second. I'm going to log out of this. So when we go to prod, when we go live with hands, all of the old notices that are in hands currently won't have an owner. Someone who, like the original person that posted it, they won't have an owner. So if you want them to be able to own that solicitation, meaning it would show up in their My Records, then you could enter the solicitation number or, pull up the one that you want. Okay, so you would pull up that notice, and then you'll see at the top here where it says change owner. You would be able to click that, and then it was going to show all of the users in your department that you could assign this notice to. So then you would just choose one of those, select them, and it will say that you successfully changed it from one user to the next. And then now that user that you gave access to, this solicitation notice will show up in their dashboard under My Records. So I will also say that even if you don't want them to, you don't have to do this for each and every one that is within your department, because in hands, you will be able to amend any solicitation notice that is within your department. So even if you're not the owner and you needed to come in and amend something, you would be able to do it as long as it's within your department. And the same thing for awards. Awards, you'd be able to go in and edit any of the awards that are within your department. I'm just going to kind of go over some other notes for the change owner. So as a department admin, you will see the change owner button on any notices or awards within your department. As a department admin, you will not see change owner button on any notices or awards in other departments. As a department admin, if you click change owner, you will see a list of users within your department that you can assign the notice or award to, including yourself. So if you wanted to change the owner and you now wanted to be the owner of it, then you could assign or make yourself the owner of that notice or award. So the next part is reports. And as of right now, we have 2 reports that, that we have in our reports section. It's always based off of, these figures here are always based off the last 30 days. Right here is a report for all edited awards that are within your department. If you want to be able to choose a date range, then you would choose details. You would come in here and you would be able to choose a date range that you would want to know, which awards were edited during that time frame. And then you could export to Excel this listing if needed. The other report that we have is going to list the awards that use either P card or contractor PO number. So you would click, again, this is for the past 30 days. But if you want to be able to choose the date range, you would choose details. You would come in here, you would choose the date range, and then you could export to Excel. And then you would just filter the column for either P card or contractor PO number. And then you would be able to determine how many P cards there were within that date range, or how many contractor PO numbers were in that date range. And that's it for the reports section. So Bonnie, that was everything that I had on my list. So first of all, did I miss anything? Which I don't think so, because that's all I had on my agenda. And then second of all, are there any other questions that we want to go over?
Yeah, before we move on to the buyer dashboard, a couple of quick questions. Will there be a mobile version of Hands?
So it is mobile friendly. It's not going to be like an app that you can download from the App Store, but you will be able to use it on your mobile device. So if you went to hands.ehawaii.gov, you would get a mobile version of the site.
Okay. And let's see, one other question. Regarding HiPro approval routes, what can be done if a buyer has a solicitation that is stuck with an approver who did not turn on the out-of-office function?
So any department admins within that department will be able to approve that solicitation. So all you would need to do is you would need to get the solicitation number, and then you as a department admin would log in. You would go to the search, you would search for that solicitation number, and then you would bring up the solicitation and scroll to the bottom, and it would say approve or reject, and then you could go ahead and approve it.
Okay. No, what would happen though if that release date is in the past?
Release date is in the past. Okay, so in HiPro, you are not able to approve if the release date is in the past, right? It either has to be a present or future date. So you would need to reject. It would go back to the buyer, and the buyer would need to either make it for today, if you're going to approve today, or for a future date. So if you're not going to be able to get to it to approve today, then have them do it a couple days from now. And then when it comes to you, then you can approve and actually release it.
Okay, couple of questions. For a vendor looking for a solicitation, will the website address now change with Hands?
When we go live with Hands, we do have HiPro integrated. So when they come to bidding opportunities, they would be able to type in a keyword and be able to pull up any solicitations that, or any opportunities that would be within that keyword. And if it links to another site, so for instance, we have on our test site one that links to Maui, but we won't have this when we go live. When we go live, we only have HiPro, but we will be integrating other sites as well. So this is just an example. If I wanted to click on this, and then it would take me to where that is posted on that website. So This is just like a Maui example. That's just what we're using on our test site. But like I said, eventually these will be integrated into hands. It just won't be when we initially go live. When we initially go live, we'll only have HiPro integrated. So for instance, if we click on a HiPro one, then it would take us to HiPro.
Okay, we have a question. How can we print the notice of award posting?
Okay, so to print should be on each page. Actually, it might even be for vendors as well. Let me look. Let's see. This one. Okay, so on each posting, they have a print section. So you would be able to press print and then print this out.
Okay, there's another question which I can answer. Can a department have more than one admin user? And the answer is yes. You can have one, take that back. You can have one primary, but you can have multiple alternates. We need to have one person be responsible, but you can delegate others to be your backup or your alternate. Okay, another question is, can a hands administrator be different from a HiPro administrator?
No. So if you're a department admin in hands, then you will also be a department admin in HiPro. Doesn't mean you have to use it. It's just you will have that access as a department admin. If you're a HiPro department admin and you want to just continue going to your dashboard in HiPro, you can. But it is much easier if you go to hands, because hands you have access literally to everything, not just one. You have access to hands and HiPro within one spot, which just makes it easier.
Okay, we don't have any more questions. We'd like you to go over the buyer's dashboard.
Okay.
Just briefly so that they can see what the buyers or posters are using.
Okay, so I'm going to log in real quick again so I can show you that section. So as a department admin, you do have your own buyer dashboard if needed. And then I'll just quickly go over that. It will look the same for your other buyers that are in your department, but the only difference would be they only have access to that one part, whereas you as a department admin have access, obviously, to this dashboard. So this is what your users will see. They'll log in, they'll see buyer dashboard, they can click in and out of Office here, they can post a solicitation notice, they can post an award notice, they can create a HiPro solicitation, they can go to My Records where it will show their hands notices, their HiPro solicitations, any awards they have created in either system, either hands or HiPro, and then any CPO requests that they have submitted. They also have information here on their profile and any approval paths, and then they also have a calendar, and the calendar is based off of, it's not stuff that they can physically go in and add themselves. It's all based off of what they do in the system. So for instance, if they post a solicitation notice and it closes on a certain date, then that date will show up on the calendar. Or if they create a HiPro solicitation and it has questions and answers, then the question due date will show up on the calendar and the question answer date will show up on the calendar as reminders for this buyer. And that's pretty much it. Oh, you know what? I'm wrong. I wanted to go over notifications. So notifications, each user will have a notifications tab up here. Anytime there's a new notification, it will show, it'll show a new number. If mainly if there is like an announcement that's made, then it will show up here. And then any of the notifications that you would typically get on your HiPro dashboard will also show up here. So let me just give an example. So right here on your HiPro dashboard, we have these notification things at the top. So you will also have access to them in Hands under the HiPro notification tab.
Yeah, there's a couple more questions.
Okay.
Let's see here. The question is, and I think we just need clarification, will HiPro go away after Hands goes live?
No. So if you want to go to hipro.ehawaii.gov and use HiPro as you normally have, then nothing will change with that.
Yeah. Okay, let's see. If someone has a poster-only role, will they have a poster dashboard?
Yes. Bonnie, do you want me to show that to them?
Megan,
like just a quick overview?
Yes.
So because a poster really only has a role in Hands and not in HiPro, they don't have that extra button that was, you remember on the buyer dashboard, it said post solicitation notice, post award notice, and then it said create HiPro solicitation. Well, that part is taken out, and then so now it's just post a solicitation notice, post an award notice, and then they would have my records. So in here it would just show their Hands notices, their Hands awards, and then any CPO requests that they have submitted. And this is it for poster dashboard.
Megan, we noticed there was no calendar for the poster. Is that correct?
Yes. So the calendar is only for buyers.
Okay. Is that it? If we don't have any more questions, I'm going to go back to my dashboard or my slides. Okay, so that was our Hands database. And some final notes. Hands is going to be live on November 20th. That's a little over three weeks from now. Any final postings must be completed on PANS no later than November 17th at 3 p.m. The system will be deactivated. Vendors and you'll be able to see and search, but you will not be able to post anything. And then remember, November 20th, all CPO requests must be submitted in Hands. This is for the executive branch, department, and agencies. 90 days after launch, all HCE users who have not been assigned a role in Hands will be deactivated as of February 18, 2018. So make sure you get them all in there. Any changes to department or jurisdiction administrators must be noted on the SPO Form 60. So finally, this is our Hands team. Myself, Shannon, Sean, and Stacy, and our partner liaison, which is Megan. So if we don't have any, whoops, I saw a question come up. Let's see what it is. The question, CPO request will no longer be mailed to the State Procurement Office. That is correct. As of November 20th, all CPO requests must be submitted through Hands. So if there's no further questions, Hands has its own email address, and all of us will be checking it. If you have a specific question that you'd like to address to one of us, this is our phone number and email addresses. We want to thank you for participating in today's webinar. Be sure to call us or email us if you have any further questions. I realize this is a brand new look and feel and system for all of you, but we're excited to get this launched and to make it work. It is more efficient, and it gives the administrators the authority to make any of these user roles, and it gives you the power to determine who should have access and who does not. So without further ado, thank you very much. And again, if you need a copy of the user manual, it will be available on the training website, or it is available, will still be up for a few more minutes, and you can download it in the lower left-hand side where it says Department Admin Files. Thank you, Megan, for participating, and we look forward to working with you.